Responding to a Christian's debate.
Okay, so if God is real, then why are there people suffering? If doctors are real, then why are there still sick people?
Doesn't mean that doctors don't exist.
The claim on the atheist side uses the argument of suffering. However, the argument of suffering should be said like this. Considering God is all-knowing, all-powerful, and all-good, how is it possible that people are suffering? This would fix the issue of him not bringing up God's attributes that make the problem of suffering a valid critique. Next, his response used the same logic as the atheists. He replaced the word God with doctors and replaced the word suffering with sick people. In this sense, he is actually correct because the argument posed by the atheist does not include the full picture. However, if the argument from the atheist side were to use the correct saying with the problem of suffering, then the argument would not stick. For example, if God is all-knowing, all-powerful, and all-good, then how come people are suffering? This could only mean that God is not one of these attributes or God does not exist. Well, if doctors are real, then why are there still sick people? Do you see how this argument no longer works when the atheist puts together the correct problem of suffering? The reason this obviously doesn't work anymore is because doctors are not all good, all-powerful, and all-knowledgeable. I would say Awad is using the straw man argument by framing the atheist side incorrectly by using the incorrect argument, but atheists do tend to cut out the other parts of the problem of suffering. For this one, Awad is actually correct. However, it is only because the atheist side posed the question incorrectly.
I mean, how do you believe in that book?
It's old.
Oh, so the book is old, but you believe what they tell you in history class, right?
And no, don't get me started on gravity, right? Gravity's old. I don't see you floating anywhere, though.
I'm not gonna lie, this one was pretty funny. I think the atheist's argument could have been worded much better by stating that the book is thousands of years old and saying how history has more proof than the Bible rather than just saying it's old. But it doesn't necessarily improve the argument, improve the initial argument that claims something is old, so it's bad. Because of the bad argument, Awad is correct, as nothing is inherently wrong just because it happens to be old. However, when he adds the history part, Awad is incorrect in making that argument. This is because history relies on verifiable evidence like archaeological finds, independent historical documents, and archaeological data. When it comes to the Bible, for some events, such as Noah's flood, the plagues of Egypt, and large-scale migrations like the Exodus, are not supported by external evidence and are considered mythologized accounts or folklore by most historians. Not to pull an appeal to authority by saying you should believe it because historians do, but you should believe it because of the evidence the historians have read and thought about. Also, the argument the atheist uses is also somewhat like the appeal to novelty fallacy, but the atheist doesn't say anything new is better, but just that the Bible being old has a potential for it to be worse. Again, the initial argument is wrong, and Awad's statement is correct, apart from the history section.
I honestly just can't believe that you pray to something
You can't see.
Bro, you literally trust in Wi-Fi.
Every day.
Another one I think Awad is partially right in. I wouldn't exactly say Awad is right because the argument he states back is true, but Awad is correct because the atheist happens to make a bad argument. Just because you can't see something does not mean that it does not exist, so the atheist is clearly wrong here. However, Awad's response being, you literally trust in Wi-Fi, isn't exactly a fair comparison. Take, for example, a god that has not been seen for many years. There are accounts of him doing things, but apart from that, you've never seen him. There is no tool or device that can make you see this apparent god. Now, take Wi-Fi, something that is invisible to the naked eye. You have and never will see Wi-Fi forever, making it even more rare than seeing God. However, Wi-Fi is something that exists on the electromagnetic spectrum, or more specifically between 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. There are tools on your phone that can actually display information about the signal strength, network names, and channel congestion. Because of this, you can actually see Wi-Fi, which makes Awad's response partially incorrect.
I mean, if prayers worked, hospitals
Wouldn't even exist.
I mean, if science worked perfectly,
Cemeteries wouldn't exist, would they?
This one, I think, is another case of a bad atheist argument being countered by an equally flawed theist one. The atheist says that if prayer worked, hospitals wouldn't exist. However, this doesn't hold because hospitals will still exist even if prayer did work. Just like people still eat healthy and exercise even if medicine exists. Prayer working doesn't logically wipe out all suffering, it would simply change the way people deal with it. Awad's response about cemeteries and science, though, is also flawed because science never claims to end death. It studies and explains natural processes, including death, so while the atheist starts off with a poor objection, Awad tries to give a parallel, but ends up just comparing something science doesn't claim to solve. Ultimately, the atheist's argument doesn't work, but Awad's logic isn't really great either.
okay, so if God is real,
Then who created God?
the same person who created
Did math.
This one is an actual decent question from the atheist side, but Awad's response doesn't really hold up. Saying God's creator is like the creator of math isn't a proper answer because math isn't something that was created. It's something that was discovered as an abstract system describing relationships that already exist in reality. To equate math with God is a category mistake, and the atheist is at least raising the classic "who created God" dilemma, but misses that in most theology, God is supposed to be uncaused and self-existent. That would have been the appropriate response, but Awad instead makes a misleading comparison that doesn't really work.
I don't get it, so why doesn't he just...
Prove himself.
He did, and then y'all made a Netflix documentary about it and then...
Called it mythology.
The atheist here is essentially asking for direct evidence of God, which is actually a valid request if someone claims God exists. Awad's response suggests that God already proved himself, but then humans dismissed it as a myth. The issue here is that this is circular. If the evidence for God is only in documents or stories that are doubted, then appealing to those same stories as proof already given doesn't really work, since that's the very thing being challenged. The atheist side isn't really 100% amazingly correct either, since proving oneself doesn't necessarily mean proving oneself in a way that everyone finds convincing forever. But Awad's answer avoids the deeper issue of why the supposed proofs fade into mythology rather than persisting as undeniable evidence. Because of this, I do think the atheist side won this point.
I already told you I believe in the
Big Bang.
cosmic fireworks without a firework maker. Got it.
Got it.
With this final one, I don't think the atheist statement is much of an argument. It's more of a declaration of belief in the Big Bang. Awad tries to turn it into something rhetorical by calling the Big Bang fireworks without a firework maker. This is basically the cosmological argument in one-liner form. The problem, though, is that Awad oversimplifies what the Big Bang actually is. It's not an explosion of fireworks, it's the rapid expansion of space itself. By using that analogy, he frames the Big Bang incorrectly to make it need a maker. The atheist doesn't give a strong argument here, but Awad responded with a strawman version of the cosmological debate. Because of both sides failing to make a real logical point, I think it's just a draw here. But thank you for tagging along, and I'm now going to leave, and I hope you have a good day. I am open to any rebuttals, of course, if we have any, but hopefully this is the start of a series where I react to content. Thank you, and have a good day.